Kevin, do you have a stat with runners in scoring position? Because that's the other thing that kind of alludes to a team finding ways to score when you got guys in that scoring position.
I do, actually. I have multiple. I like the new Factor Crap 7 we're going with here. So shout out to Brad for the name. I think that one should stick.
You know what
Factor
we should
crap.
do, too? We'll have like fact, and then we'll get Fat Bastard's name with like crap. That's what we should put in. You still haven't seen that movie yet, but it's okay. It's not okay.
We'll do it on the soundboard.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But so for runners in scoring position, there's been a lot of talk about the Orioles being a pure only power team, not hitting well enough runners in scoring position, which, over the past stretch, we can all say that, they've left a lot of guys on. But from a whole perspective during the 2024 season so far, and we can even bring the Yankees into this too, Baltimore right now actually is the 8th best team in the MLB, actually tied with Texas at 3.3 runners left in scoring position per game. For context, Seattle's the best. They only leave about 2.7 runners on per game. The worst is Washington, 3.94. Baltimore's at 3.3 at number 8. The Yankees are at number 7 at 3.24. So the Orioles are just 0.06 runners behind the Yankees so far. Now, the thing that was interesting to me is when you're talking about the home versus away splits, Baltimore actually, if you only look at them at Camden Yards in terms of leaving guys on base, they're the 4th best team in the league at home in terms of leaving guys on, which is that's good. 2.89 per game. Again, for context, the worst at home is Washington with 4.2 left on. Now you go on the road, and this is where Baltimore drops. Baltimore, they actually are the 4th worst team in the MLB on the road at leaving guys on, 3.85 runners per game left on the road. Now, if you want to compare 2024 to 2023 quickly, Baltimore, 3.3 this year. Last year, 3.18. So not a ton. I mean, they were a little bit better last year, but there's not that big of a discrepancy. So again, the past stretch, they've left a lot of guys on, but from a whole perspective in 2024, actually a little better than I thought. And the home and away splits is what really piqued my interest with that.
So they leave less guys in scoring position than most teams.
Yes.
So I'll play devil's advocate here. That's also because they aren't getting guys on base.
Sure.
So
yes.
I'm, Rocco, I know you said I think the Orioles are doing exactly what they've been doing all season still. They're hitting home runs and not getting on base. This is not. Brandon Hyde talked about it the other day when he said he wasn't sure, he wasn't happy at all with the at-bats the Orioles were taking. They're not working the count. What was so impressive about the Orioles last year was their ability to have long, drawn-out at-bats that got pitchers out of the game early, and they were able to capitalize on weaker bullpens that had to come in and use a lot of arms. We saw them with all those comeback wins. And this year it just feels like they are so reliant on, last year it was very much everyone complained we want them to be more aggressive. And now they're over aggressive. And I think eventually they will come back down to more of a middle. But but I just right now with them sporting the 5th worst on base percentage in baseball, that's not something that I think they can sit there and go, okay, we need to figure something out. And it needs to get much better, because you can't be a bottom 5 team in on base percentage and expect to consistently win baseball games over 162 games. And I looked it up. From up until April, their on-base percentage was only a 311. It's now at 300 exactly. So that's my biggest concern with this team is it's not that they aren't scoring runs. They're they're scoring the right amount of runs because, they've scored, what is it, still the most runs in the AL? But it's the point of, it's not sustainable in my eyes for them to continue to rely on, if the home run ball is not there, we're not going to be able to put up runs. And that's why I think we're seeing these stretches of 5 or 6 games where it feels like the Orioles can't score more than 3 runs.
Yeah. And also to give context from last year, by the way, the Orioles were 21st in Major League Baseball, going back to walks last year. And they actually were a top 10 team average wise, finishing at a 255 average. But it's different. Your offense is going to change every single year, how it dictates. But the name of the game, get them on, get them in. And if you're not going to get them on, you better hit the ball out of the ballpark, right? That's kind of what the MO has been for the Orioles. But despite all this, guys, they're still finding ways. And they have a chance to rewrite the ship, but it's going to have to be when they're moving forward. The consistency level is what's going to be talked about right now because they have done very well. I mean, look, it also depends on matchups too. I don't know, for whatever reason, they play better against the AL East. Like, they really play better against the AL East. And that's what you need them to do. But like when you see the Cardinals and you look on paper, just whatever the matchup was, maybe it's just the rain delays, nothing seemed in sync, and it seemed like the offense had a lot of fits. Maybe it's because you're not as familiar with them too. You don't play them a lot. Like, that's another thought and process, but we'll find out. That's the way the cookie crumbles,
so
Kevin.
I will say, looking back at, I'm going through guys 2023 and 2024. The biggest guy that stands out, especially on base percentage and drawing walks, is Adley Rutschman, because last year finished the year with 154 games last year. Adley Rutschman had 92 walks and just 101 strikeouts. That's pretty much a 1 walk to 1 strikeout ratio. That's incredible. This year, through 45 games, so we're looking at pretty much less than a fourth, pretty much close to a third of what he played last year. He only has 10 walks and 37 strikeouts, close to 4-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. He's on pace to probably have like 35 walks, which would be a third of what he had last year. That's where I feel like we're seeing. Last year, Adley was overly cautious and really trying to draw walks and stuff and get on base. This year, we see him very aggressive. I think he's one of those guys where I would like to see him fall back more towards the middle to really start getting guys on base, because right now, if it's home run or bust for these guys, that's where I get concerned.
Yeah, and right now that's kind of been the way it's been for most of the season is capitalize, driving runs. Gunnar Henderson hits a home run at some point in the game, and it's crazy. Gunner's hit a home run in like a third of baseball games this year for the Baltimore Orioles.